But that's okay. We're in the left lane, and it's okay to be in the left lane because we're passing all those slow pokes in the right lane, right? We're going right along. But that's not good enough. It's not good enough for Miss Get Out of My Way, who's riding our bumper and who may be flashing her lights at us, to show how unhappy she is with our tortoise pace. So, to avoid a possible road rage incident and being on the evening news, we speed up a little bit, we move to the right, and we decide to let her pass. And as she's passing, we look over and she's mouthing something to us, which we can't hear, but our lip reading skills are really good. And it wasn't have a blessed day, right? So she's moving along and she goes up ahead of us. And we think about it for a minute. We think, you know what? I want to send her a message too. So we speed up and we pull right alongside of her. And as our hand raises, and we're going to give her the universal message we all know and that some of us have used, we hear the voice of our sainted grandmother. Remember, Jesus is watching you. Dang. So your hand retracts without sending a message, and you say to yourself, Grandma, if you're listening, you had better put in a good word to Jesus for me. And she does. And how do you know that? Because you have let Miss Get Out of My Way go on up ahead of you. She drops over a hill. But as you drop over the hill, she's on the shoulder of the road with some pretty blue lights behind her. And you think to yourself, karma, forgetting all about you were going just as fast as she was just a few minutes earlier, right? But you forget about all of that and you look heavenward and you say, thanks, Grandma. But let's be real here. We're really not any better than this get out of my way sometimes, right? Think about it. Sometimes traffic in both lanes is moving really slow. Oh gosh, we've got places to be, we've got people to see. And although the left lane is moving, oh, so much faster, and just a little bit faster than us, it's moving. So we squeeze in, right? Sometimes dangerously so, cutting people off and forgetting to give our signals. And we think we've really done something until a mile or so down the road, there's either an accident or there's construction. And you have someone directing traffic and they're deciding which lane goes and which lane stops. And guess what? It's our turn to wait. Yeah, you're laughing. It's happened to you, right? And I have learned that that is one of those rare instances where prayer does not work. You know, prayer does not work to any deity in that case. It's not only traffic. Some people refuse to wait more than 10 minutes at a restaurant to be seated, but they will drive another 30 minutes to decide where they want to eat, right? You done that? My personal limit is 20 minutes waiting at a restaurant, so I am not innocent in all of this, right? If they say 25, 30 minutes, I'm out. I'm done. And Richard and I will probably drive another 30 minutes looking for another place to eat. Hurry up and wait. I think it is a huge, colossal waste of energy and time, yet I find myself participating in this particular activity far more than I would care to admit. So, what's the core issue? Well, one possibility driving this whole hurry up and wait scenario is a lack of patience. A lack of patience, not only with technology and systems and so forth, patience with other people, a lack of patience with people, and a lack of patience with ourselves. And where there is a lack of patience, negative judgment usually follows, right? So, what's happening there? Well, I believe a lot of our impatience is based on our very human need to control. We want to be in control. If we can name it, if we can define it, we can control it. And very human and that's very normal. And most of us do it because that gives us a sense of peace and calm, right? If we can control things or think we can control it, there's peace and there's calm. It gives us power. And then we can move on to the next thing. We don't have to bother with this anymore because we're busy people and we've got things to do. And if we can't figure it out, whatever it may be, on our timeline, what do? We wash our hands and walk away from it because we don't have time to deal with that kind of stuff. Some of us might say, I've turned it over to God, which is really sometimes another form of spiritual bypassing because we don't want to ask the tough questions and have the tough conversations we need to have. And wouldn't you know it? There's a story that addresses something like this in the Bible. It's in the 13th chapter of Luke, and it's called the parable of the unproductive fig tree. Jesus tells a story about a landowner who's really upset because he planted this, or his gardener planted this fig tree 3 years prior, and it is still not producing fruit. He's done, he's over it, tells the gardener, cut it down, it's just taking up space. It's just taking up good soil. The gardener, however, asks for one more year to till the soil around the plant, to fertilize it. And then in a year, if it's not producing fruit, he'll cut it down. Do you want to know what happened? So do I. Because the Bible doesn't give us the end of the story. Yeah, it does that a lot. The traditional interpretation of this particular parable is that God is the landowner, Jesus is the gardener, and the nation of Israel, or the Israelites, are the fig tree. And that God throughout history has worked through the Israelites. They haven't listened to prophets. They are not listening to his son, Jesus. God has had it. Get rid of it. They're taking up space. Jesus, however, says, give me another year. Give me some time to till and to keep working with people. And, eventually, if they don't come around, then we can get rid of it, right? Get rid of it. Well, that's one way you can look at it. That is one way. And that is how some people do look at it. In fact, this story has been used in some traditions to let Gentile people like most of us off the hook, right? Because we're talking about the nation of Israel here. So since we're talking about Israel, it doesn't apply to all of us who are not Jewish. Okay? So I'm going to take a different approach. And I know you're shocked by that, right? For me, this is a story about how a lack of patience can lead to a premature negative judgment. For me, in this story, the landowner is not God. For me, in this story, the landowner represents a consciousness of impatience. Okay, a consciousness of impatience. Think, how many times have some of us said, or have we heard it said, you know what? She has always been uncooperative. Always. Rude and arrogant is more like it. So we just need to cut her loose, let her go. We're done. Or here's one we can all relate to. You know what? We elected these people based on their promises of prosperity and peace and equality. And you know what? It's been a year and a half. Just how hard can it be to get Republicans and Democrats to agree on anything? And what do we hear every 4 years? Vote them out. Vote them all out. All right. And it's just not other people and groups that, we can be impatient with or want to prune from our lives. We're pretty hard on ourselves sometimes too, right? We look around at other people and see how successful they appear to be, how beautiful and buff and fit and wealthy, and they seem to have their spiritual life in order, and we want that. We want what they've got, and that is normal. And sometimes we start making plans and we start working toward goals to achieve some of those things in our own lives. Again, nothing wrong with that. But when things don't start happening on our timeline, we can get impatient, right? We start negatively judging ourselves. I'm too old to do this. I don't have the money to do this. I am too fat. I am too thin. I am too this. I am too that. And especially, I'm just not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Okay. What happens when we do that? We walk away from a lot of our very healthy, valid goals. Toxic religion, I believe, plays a huge role in negative self judgment too. You know, a lot of us were taught growing up that when we were born, yes, we are beautiful bundles of joy and we're full of sin and depravity. And, you know, in order to avoid an eternity in a very unpleasant place, we have to make certain confessions, we have to say certain things, and we have to go to a particular church or be a part of a particular spiritual community. Okay? I think it's teachings like these that lead to the attempted suicide or the suicides of so many young people, especially LGBTQ plus and trans youth. Think about this. Young people in general across the board are struggling with issues of self worth and who they're going to be and how they fit in the world and so forth and so on. But then you have kids like this who are told from some churches and governments making laws about their bodies and what they can do and what they can't do. They sit back and kids internalize this stuff and think, you know what? I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm not worthy. I'm just taking up good soil. And some of them actually and tragically prune themselves from this life far too early. Think about how some traditions teach that our very relationships and our lives and our identities have to fit a certain prescribed religious and government pattern in order to be worthy. I think about some of my straight friends who, for whatever reasons, choose not to get married, choose not to have children, for whatever reasons they have. And folks look down on them sometimes. And they make comments about how they've chosen to live their lives. They think they're less than somehow. They self judge in negative ways. What do we do with that? How do we deal with the challenges of impatience leading to negative self judgment? I believe we begin by working with our gardeners. And for me, the gardener is the Christ consciousness and that Christ spirit which lives within each and every one of us. We work with our Christ consciousness within to till the soil of our inner lives, of our consciousness. We work with our gardener, our consciousness, to fertilize our lives with positive and, yes, appropriately challenging spiritual teachings which encourage us to grow, to produce good fruit. There's a catch, because there's always a catch. This doesn't happen overnight, y'all. Remember in the story, the gardener asked for a year, asked for some time to do the tending and the fertilizing. It's the same with our lives. This kind of tending takes time. It requires an investment of our time and our love. This kind of tending requires us to not only remember, but to believe to our very core that we are worthy, that we are expressions of God. This mindset, this tending requires patience and it requires faith, things which are not easy for most of us. Yet in unity, that's how we teach that spiritual healing and growth actually happen. We first have faith that we are worthy, that we can do it, that we have what we need to do what is ours to do. We have that faith that we open ourselves up to being fertilized, right? To being tilled, to being channels for all that Spirit would do through us and as us. Also, note the time will come when we have to prune. I believe that's why we don't have the ending of the story in the Bible. Sometimes, regardless of how much we prune and we fertilize and really do the work, we learn. Our power of spiritual understanding informs our judgment that perhaps it's time to do some pruning. That perhaps there are some relationships or there are some behaviors or there are some beliefs which may have been okay in the past, but they're really not okay for us now. They're taking up too much good soil. And this is not a negative judgment of ourselves or others. This is a positive and healthy discernment and judgment born of spiritual understanding. Now, of course, we have free will, so we don't have to prune. You don't have to prune if you don't want to. What we risk, however, if we don't prune, is, I believe, a more negative form of judgment. And this does not come from God. I believe this negative judgment comes in the form of a loss of quality of life. It can result in physical pain, in spiritual pain, in emotional pain. In other words, we judge ourselves. We sentence ourselves to a hellish existence here and now on this plane. But you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. That's the good news today. It doesn't have to be that way because we have the power within us to do what we need to do to shape our lives. In Unity, we define faith as the perceiving power of mind combined with the power to shape substance, and we all have it. So we can change it. In the end, if we think about it, our existence on this planet is largely one of tending, right? Tending and pruning, and yes, waiting. And if we haven't yet learned to wait or to develop some healthy patience in our lives, perhaps we haven't learned how to fully live right now. So my prayer for all of us today is that we learn to practice a little patience. Practice the pause. Let's try to respond rather than react. Let's develop those powers of understanding that we all have and that power of spiritual judgment, of healthy judgment, to learn when it's time, to discern when it's time to wait, to till, and to prune. And then let's activate that power of will to follow through on what our understanding and judgment tell us. Let's trust. Let's have faith that while patience and tending and tilling and pruning aren't really easy for most of us, it's actually through those actions that we can truly live our best lives. Look all around you, folks. The sun is out a little. The flowers are blooming. It's springtime. It's time for gardening. Perhaps it's time for a little spiritual gardening. Roll up your sleeves. Are you ready to work? Amen.
Into thy hand I commit my spirit. Thy will is my will. Heal me at depth so that I may be one with God. Reveal that which needs to be revealed. Heal that which needs to be healed. so that I may be one with God.
This morning, as we enter a time of meditation, I encourage you to, as you're comfortable, close your eyes or hold a soft gaze. Relax your shoulders a bit, putting your feet solidly on the floor, connecting with that earth energy below. And just relax. Take a deep, calming breath. Let it move through you. Breathe out. Let's do that again. Deep breath in and out. One more time. In and release. And as you breathe, I encourage you to this morning think about possibly something going on in your life that may need a little tending. Is it a relationship? Is it a job? Whatever it may be. I want you to breathe in the spirit of patience. Just let that calm you for a minute. Think about things you could do to practice the pause, to learn, to grow. Where is that growth opportunity? Is it time to prune? You have time. You have time. Breathe in. Relax. Let's take a moment and center in the silence as we just can just sit in patience for just a moment. We affirm and we give thanks that the answers to our prayers are already there. Whether it is to wait, to till, or to prune, we affirm that divine order is moving in, through, and expressing as us and in our lives. We release control. We open ourselves to the healing power of spirit. And in so doing, we express from our best selves and we live our best lives. So it is. So we allow it to be. Amen.
into thy hand I commit my spirit. I will, if my will heal me at death, so that